Good evening. This is 6 o'clock news. I'm Richard Diffley.
And I'm Nadia Beacon.
And you're on P15 News. On tonight's show, health. Who's worth treating and who's not. Corruption in the health sector. Then, young people. Binge drinking. The externality that's worrying us all. And on education. Do more years in education guarantee a higher income in the future? A group of students attempts to answer these questions in depth. Lastly, tonight, on income, poverty and inequality, on an all-time high in the recession, with special guest speaker Miss Joan Collins.
Your news tonight, P15, every 15 minutes.
Today with us is special reporter Nicole Sullivan to help us unravel the case of corruption in the health sector.
After conducting a recent cost-benefit analysis, economists have termed many patients over the age of 60 ineligible for treatment, regarding the latest phenomenon of the tragedy of the commons. Economists have used this term to define the current overuse of the N7. The population has diminished the value of this common resource, thus leaving the roads inadequate for drivers to use. The so-called tragedy that has emerged is the negative externality that this has admitted, the fumes. However, because these roads are neither excludable, people who do not pay for the good cannot be denied its use, or rival, the use of the good does not diminish another's ability to use it. The good is defined as a public good. The problem associated with this is not only the negative externalities that the fumes are emitting, causing this illness, but the costs involved in repairing such damages. After recent debates in the Dáil, the government have added up the cost of treating patients over the age of 60 who have been affected by these negative externalities. Looking at the latest publishings, it is clear that the costs exceed the benefits that these citizens offer to society. For example, a patient who has 5 working years left with €20,000 per annum will calculate a contribution of €100,000 to society. But the treatment resulting from these fumes costs €200,000. Thus, this category of people have been deemed as ineligible for treatment. In addition to this unacceptable behaviour, the QALY, which is the Quality Adjusted Life Years, resulting from the treatment has a 0.70 disability measurement, thus resulting in a diminished health state of 3.5 years following the treatment. Debates are ongoing regarding the choice between treating such patients or repairing the road damages. The government are trying to support their decision in terms of the economic principle, governments improve market outcomes, and resulting from the cost-benefit analysis, the benefits of repairing the roads are exceeding the benefits of treating such patients. So who will take the hit? Economically speaking, the answer is the development and repair of the road. However, will morality overcome the economics of this country?
Thanks for this story, Nicole. Now, on young drinking. During the past few years, we have seen a huge increase in the number of drunk youngsters on the streets, a habit which creates byproducts such as garbage, urine smell, and indecent behaviour. These byproducts are negative externalities, that is, the impacts on a third party of the activities of others. Society as a whole is affected by this behaviour, which creates noise as well as visual pollution. An anonymous neighbour from the busy Temple Bar area in Dublin tells us her story.
The noise in the area is just simply intolerable, as well as the smell coming from the street. It's impossible to sleep. The Coase theorem suggests we bargain with the polluters. However, there is no possibility of reaching a mutually beneficial agreement because we understand this is an area of great nightlife.
According to her, the government should introduce a command and control policy to regulate this behaviour by introducing a curfew for young people under the age of 21 to prevent these sorts of externalities. Back to you, Richard.
Thanks, Maria. I have to say though, I've had a few of those nights in Temple Bar myself. It really does smell. But anyway, the Minister for Education has stated that in fact the more years you spend in education, the more likely you are to earn a higher salary. Special reporter Brona Keane has a story.
Yes, Richard, that is right. A group of economics students studying in Trinity College Dublin have in fact come to the conclusion that education does pay off in the long run. The report states that investments in education is tied to a specific person, and this linkage is known as human capital. The more human capital a person has, the more likely he/she will earn more than a person with less human capital. However, there's been speculation by many groups stating that schooling has no real productive benefit. It only signals out to employers your willingness and commitment to spending years learning and going through the process of education. Others state that you cannot solely base one's income on their human capital, as there are other factors to take into consideration, such as natural ability. People differ in their physical and mental attributes and efforts, so some people will only do what they have to do to get the job done, while others may put in long hours and considerable effort into their work. Trinity's economics students have in fact found a positive externality of education, and although debatable, there is general consensus that education is a secure long-term investment.
Thanks for that story, Brana. Lately, economists have been analysing income inequality in Europe, particularly in the United Kingdom. Studies show that 10% of annual families' income is less than £9,000 a year. In contrast, 90% of people in the UK are living with just over £40,000 a year. In the United Kingdom, 12 million households are considered poor. There's a poverty scale that has two different views on what poverty really means. Economists divide the poverty line into two sections: absolute and relative poverty. Absolute poverty is when people do not have enough money to pay for the basic essentials that will keep them alive, for example, food, water, and shelter. Whilst relative poverty is when people cannot take part in the expected normal activities of everyday life due to not having enough money. I sat down with Miss Joan Collins, TD, to get further insight on these issues. So thanks very much, Miss Collins, for allowing me to interview you today. Just have a few questions regarding the economy in Ireland. In the upcoming budget, in regards to social groups, classes, which do you think will be affected the most or the worst, in your opinion?
Well, listen to the kite line that's going on the last couple of weeks, and we're going to hear now for the next month. It looks like, from the government's point of view, below middle income will be targeted very much so. And old age pensions with the travel pass, they're looking at changing the character of that. How, I don't know how they're going to do it, but certainly the low middle income, who have been the people who've been subjected most in relation to the austerity cuts over the last number of years. And it's the social classes that actually spend the most money in the economy, and that's why we in the United Left Alliance have been saying that austerity just cannot work, because it's cutting more and more into people's incomes, so they have less and less to spend into the economy, into the local shops, into the hairdressers, into all that sort of good stuff in the community and that. And that's having another impact then in losing jobs in the economy through that way as well. So they would be the main groups I think would be affected.
Yeah. Yeah. And in regards to social welfare in this country, do you believe it's too high or too low, and that people may take advantage of the welfare system?
I don't think it's too high. 188 job seekers is not a hell of a lot of money. Now, if you add on your children's allowance and stuff like that, that does help from the point of view of keeping your head above water. But if you look at the amount of people who've been put on the dole, were mainly builders that have worked in the economy up to about 4 years ago, and they're people who were never on the dole before in their lives, and to be on the dole is just pretty bad from their point of view. They don't want to be there. It's a place they don't want to be. 188, as I said, is not a hell of a lot of money. It's then means tested after a year. It could be reduced. It's not too high, and in actual fact, with the increases that have come in relation to the massive increases in gas, in ESB, even if you want to stay in the VHI, if people have children, they want to keep in the VHI, it's becoming impossible on the dole. It's bad enough for people who are actually in work.
Yeah.
You have the working poor now, but if you're on the dole, it's €188 a week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not very much more.
It's not much, I agree.
And then when you see the likes of Joan Borton and Eamon Gilmore and all them in there talking about we all have to take the pain. The pain is earning €188 a week. These people, their nests are well feathered, and they don't have to worry about putting food on the table, paying their electricity bills. Most probably have their mortgages paid off. They don't have to worry about that. So I don't think the social welfare is too low. I think it should stay at that level at least. So when I heard the guy from the IMF, when we met them there about 2 weeks ago, when the Troika came into town and their quarterly review, they meet all the different parties and that, you said he couldn't understand how somebody on 65 grand a week, it was referring to that wife of the guard, and he couldn't, that family couldn't survive in Ireland, you know. He was saying in Belgium, 65,000 is a massive wage, and the cost of living is much less, and that's the very point we made to them. Yes, the cost of living is much less in Ireland, but the cost of living is much higher than UK, Europe, etc. And people on those sort of wages, I find it difficult to survive. So just imagine what it's like for somebody on €188 a week, or 240 or €240 a week. And At the moment, the situation is that unless, as I said, it comes back to job creation, and the argument the government are using now is that governments don't create jobs, they create the economic environment to allow private sector create the jobs. The fact of the matter is that over the last number of years, there's been a 64% strike on capital. They're not private companies are not investing in Ireland, so it's nearly a strike on capital. So where are the jobs going to come from? It's not going to come from the private sector, and it's up to government to intervene at points and say, well, listen, we have to be responsible then for creating jobs, and the United Left Alliance will be putting forward in the next week or so a programme to do that, and where you get the money from, and say this is what we need. We need a jobs programme to create about 300,000 jobs in this country through renewable energies, water pipes being fixed, all these things that you just earmark and have a 5-year plan for, and in that way that gets people back into the system of work and paying taxes off the dole. Has a huge impact all around.
And with the dole and the minimum wage, like the minimum wage is quite reasonable in relation, like compared to other countries. But do you feel like some people might not be bothered to kind of go out and seek a job when they could just sit at home and watch the Jeremy Cole show and just, you know,
yeah, you have to create jobs that pay reasonable wages, you know. I mean, if you're on the dole at the moment and say you're on you have a medical card, which is very, very valuable to people. It's nearly like your free healthcare service, which we should have anyway. And then you're on the dole, and you're getting your children's allowance maybe, and a little bit extra here and there. But at the end of the day, if you talk to many men and women, they don't want to be there. They want to be out working.
Yeah. In other news, the poverty rate has fallen in the United Kingdom, France and Germany, whilst in Hungary, Estonia and Poland, the poverty scale is on the rise. Politicians have tried to combat poverty in Ireland by establishing the social welfare system and a minimum wage policy, whose accuracy and aim has been debatable as it is increasing businesses' costs, which results in companies making cuts as cost increases. On the other side, it is clear that welfare and having minimum wage has reduced crime rates, as poor people are less likely to resort to crime due to a minimum standard of living.
Lastly, an important notice for Southern Europe, in particular Spain. A cloud of smog has settled over the city of Barcelona, created by the pollution emitted from factories in the area. The Spanish economic crisis has made environmental policy take a secondary position as economic policy takes the spotlight. In Barcelona, the government has set a speed limit to avoid similar situation to that of China in 2007, where similar clouds settled over Asia. The population has been advised to wear face masks where possible. A market-based policy could be implemented if the government internalized this externality to heavily tax the polluters. Tension is mounting as Spanish citizens demand action to disperse the cloud. Meanwhile, the government prays for rain as autumn falls upon us in order to disperse the polluted particles in the air and avoid a crisis. This has been your News Tonight, daily updates brought to you every 15 minutes by P15 News. Thanks for watching and good night.
Good night. I have a good feeling about this one.
Sorry, that was my fuck up.
No.
Sorry.
I was like, shit, I don't know this.
Regarding the fuck.
Don't worry.
My mouth's just dry, like, it's just dry.
The conclusion that education does not pay off in the long run.
What are you saying for the read?
Do more people in education guarantee a higher income in the future?
Yeah, more
Purpose.
people guarantee a higher income.
Students attempt to answer these questions. Laugh.
You do what they have to do is get their work done and blah 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 blah.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.